Welcome to Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons, the podcast where we cut through the noise and share strategies that actually drive customer-led growth. Each week, we bring you straight-talking conversations on adoption, retention, expansion, and everything in between. Let's get started.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons. I am Jason Whitehead here in a sunny Washington, D.C., and joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Noble, over in the UK. Say hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason, from a sunny London.
Awesome. And today we have a fun topic that I'm excited about, which is the two of us digging into some of the most exciting shifts happening in SaaS. And it's AI is exploding, and every founder is pitching an AI angle and upgrade, and every board and investor is demanding an AI strategy. And let's be honest, though, some of it's hype, but the real story isn't really hype at all here. And the real story is this. AI is transforming how we build products, how we acquire customers, and how we scale post-sales. But if you think AI is going to replace the human side of customer success and the human side of growing your business, you're already behind. So the founders who win are the ones treating AI as an amplifier and not a substitute. And they're using it to remove friction, sharpen focus, give their teams more headspace to build real trust and drive real outcomes. So that's what we're really going to talk about today, is this sort of the intersection of automation and humanity, and how leaders build a customer experience that can't easily be copied. So let's get into it. Mr. Noble, I'm going to lead off with the first question for you, which is, what is the biggest misconception founders have about AI and customer success right now?
I think this is such a big topic and a really good one for us to do.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of episodes on this, on AI and the relevance of it for customer success. But I think, as you said in the intro, one of the challenges we've got now is that every single vendor out there, SaaS vendor, is racing to bolt AI onto what they're doing. They're pitching AI. Some are just doing AI. In all of the presentations, the pictures from companies, all of the board slides, everyone's talking about AI. But I think the challenge is no one's asking what is a far more uncomfortable question is, what happens when every vendor has the same AI toys, for want of a different word? If AI is everywhere, if AI is everywhere and it stops being a differentiator, what will differentiate you is how you use it to strengthen the parts of your business that only humans can deliver. And as we've talked about, it's AI as an enabler. It's not a bubble. It's a technology evolutionary shift. The next one, a huge one, but it's fundamentally rewiring how SaaS companies grow. And I think the businesses that get this right will quickly pull away from those that are stuck in the let's just automate everything mindset. And I think now, in customer success, that's what we're seeing. People are, and we've talked about it, people are using it for efficiency gains. That's where people are putting the investments in, the time in. How can it speed up reporting? How can it automate reporting? So I think one of the big misconceptions is it's there to just automate. That's not the case. It's there to help and enable us to add more value. I think that some founders are also looking at AI to help fix churn, or even, been people saying that AI is going to replace customer success. I don't think it will, but what it will do is expose weaker processes or weak processes faster. AI will absolutely give us that clarity, the speed, but it can't create relationships, it can't create context, and it can't create trust. And I think we've said before, the other key thing, though, is that AI and doing anything with it depends so much on clean, accurate data and having the right processes and the tight operations behind it. And I think the danger is assuming automation equals progress and that it can do it without the human. And it's not. As we said, this is about, we talked before about technology-enabled customer success. This is AI-enabled. You still bring the human in at the right point. And I think that's the key thing. Let me flip a question back to you. Where do you see, so today, as we've talked about it before, where do you see AI delivering real strategic value in customer success and not just the more tactical wins?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things. Where is it doing it right now versus where will it be doing it shortly? And I don't think the two are quite the same. Because before I get into that, I was, as you were talking, and I was thinking about it earlier today, where we are right now in the AI hype cycle. It kind of reminds me of about, I don't know, 15 years ago when smartphones first came out, and it was sort of, I still remember the first iPhone generation one, and when I got that, it was like, oh, mobile is new, and then mobile is the new normal,
Yep.
and now it's just the normal. And I think we're going to see that with AI as well,
Yep.
too. And it's going to go through that cycle. But the mobile first technology did change everything. Like suddenly you're doing websites on the go, you're FaceTiming people on your phone, you're communicating differently with friends, with family, with coworkers, with customers. I think we are going to see some of those parallels happening with AI that we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but it is going to transition things, but it's not going to eliminate a lot of stuff. So I think that is part of it. But right now, in terms of real strategic value, I think it's still early to see. I think we are getting some folks that are getting better customer insights. We're noticing trends that we couldn't see. We're picking up sentiment signals from analyzing transcripts and videos. So I think you're seeing some of those sort of things. But I think it's still tactical. I think there's still a lot of, wow, I sent this email faster. Wow, I've got my follow up to my meeting notes all done, a little more accuracy. So I think there's a lot of that. But one of the things I was talking with my family this weekend, and I'm like, in some ways, I'm kind of an AI hypocrite in that, I come into AI and I'll start using it for doing things around customer success or user adoption and coming up with new tools and resources. And AI is regurgitating all this crap that's close, but not quite. And I have enough expertise and education experience to spot the difference and correct it. Because, AI shares a lot of best practice or common practice, not best practice. It's not creative. It's not coming up with new ideas and coming up with things. It's regurgitating the math. So for things that I know about, I take a very critical eye to it. Things where I'm less of an expert, like if it was HR policy or sales or marketing, or the other things that I've done some but not as well. There, I'm like, sounds good. I believe it. I'm going with AI's recommendation. But for things I actually know what the hell I'm talking about, I have a very critical eye. So I think that there's still a lot of people who have that same approach where they distrust it for things they know about, but they were willing to trust it for things they don't know about.
Fascinating.
What
And
are
I
your
think I
thoughts?
think I think you're right. Do you see that changing? So is that do you think that way of thinking, particularly someone like yourself that's in technology and
Mhm.
that's your career, do you see that changing? Has that started to change? Are you starting to trust it more for things that you do know about, or would you still question it?
I still question it and sometimes ignore it. I think the AI tools themselves will improve. But one of the things that we did talk about, or you brought up, is the underlying data that's
Yep.
sourcing it needs to be much more reliable, and I don't think it's there yet. But I think it could get there. But I think what I like about AI is sort of like an on-demand tutor that gets you a little bit turns you into the fastest turtle, gets you a little bit faster about things you don't need to know about on demand, and it allows you to move forward with a little bit of confidence, but not quite the arrogance that experts have with things. So I think that's going to be an interesting shift of how it engages with people in some regards. And I think as the data quality gets better, it will improve. But I don't think it's there yet. But what are your thoughts? I mean, where do you take a skeptical eye, and where do you say, wow, this is actually going to add new value for
I
me?
think, I mean, I don't think I'd thought about it like you said, but I think I share
Mhm.
exactly the same thinking that it is things things that you, and is that just us being human, that
Mhm.
things that we don't know about, we're assuming that it's correct and knows things, and it's
Mhm.
the source of truth, and it's more difficult for us to question things that we don't know about, whereas things we
Right.
do know about and we like to think of ourselves as having some sort of expertise in, we naturally question it a bit more. So I
Right.
think that's really interesting. I think it's probably how most people are using it. And I read something over the weekend that just the number of searches being done on Google are dropping, and the number of
Yep.
people going straight to AI tools like ChatGPT has gone up.
Yeah.
But people are still doing, I know, look at my kids, they're doing Google so effectively using ChatGPT and doing Google-like queries. So they're
Right.
learning there. But I guess even before we use large language models and we search for something, would we question it? You,
Yeah.
it'd probably be exactly the same. If there was a piece of content about customer success or adoption written by someone that we might know who they were, you wouldn't be necessarily critical of it, but you'd more question it naturally as part of a conversation. Whereas, like you
Yeah.
say, if it's something about HR or something even more remote that we know nothing about, you don't know what
Right.
to question necessarily. But I wonder if that's a
Yeah.
new skill that we've got to learn, even for things where you're not sure, you don't know the
Right.
content. Do we need a better way of questioning it? And does that become a does that become a big differentiator for what makes us human? Is we will question that we've got a lot more. I've lost the word. Just we know to ask. We know to ask
Right.
questions. The intuition's there. That's the natural, that gut feeling
Right.
that comes from experience, and AI doesn't have that yet.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And like I say, AI, it's based off of models and training and algorithms, but it's not based off of creativity or instinct or something new and different. Or so I don't know, it's very interesting. But I like what you were saying too about like, Google search is going down. This weekend, I was out with my brother and sister, and we're looking in a new town just on a vacation. And we're like, oh, we need to find out where the nearest grocery store is. So my sister gets on the Googles and starts trying to type in her stuff. I just hit the Chat GPT button, start talking to the. Mine, of course, is set up as a British woman. So say, hey, here's where we are. Tell me where the nearest grocery store is. And like, oh, you can walk there. I'm like, do I turn left or right out the front door? And she goes, oh, you turn right and you do this. I'm like, so it's really fascinating just to have her be able to tell us that. But it didn't even occur to me to go to Google anymore. It's like, I'm just going to ask the question and I'll have a response verbally in 2 seconds. My sister didn't even finish typing it in, and
And
it was kind of
particularly when
wild.
you can have a conversation with it. So I don't use it like that,
Yeah.
but I've seen it, and I
Hmm.
need to start doing it more. Maybe I just need newer technology that can support it. But it is, it's
Yeah.
very clever. It changes it. You're asking more human-like conversations. Fascinating. Let me
Yeah.
throw another question to you, Jace. If
Mhm.
every SaaS company, say we've all got AI, we've got access to the
Yeah.
same tools, the level of maturity goes up. What then becomes the real differentiator for a SaaS company? How do they, if everyone's at that kind of same level playing field, I think your example earlier about the mobile phones is phenomenal, and I'd never really thought about it, but it's the same. Everyone's now got mobile phones. Everyone's
Oh
got
yeah. Yeah.
access to that same technology. What then becomes the real differentiator for founders, for leaders?
Yeah. It's sort of my gut instinct tells me it's kind of like any new technology. Like when CRMs first came out, there were one or two that were, Siebel and others were leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. And now Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, all the rest of them, they all do basically the same shit, in some form or fashion. So we have seen this before where, there's the early lead is who's going to be the first to market and really break some ground here. Everyone's going to quickly catch up in some form or fashion. And then the devil's in the details. Who does have the best UI? Who is most responsive? Who is easiest to work with? And I think you'll see the same here with AI. There will be differences between the models and the tools and how they operate and how you operate with them. But really, what it comes down to, like we said, if AI is meant to be an enabler, the real power is going to come down to who's going to be the one making decisions, who's going to be the one bringing the creativity that AI cannot bring, who's going to interpret the results, who's going to say, this is what we should do with it, and here's how I know. So I think that human element is going to be really exciting. But even just like the getting on Google versus talking to ChatGPT, how people get there will matter, and it will differ dramatically and rapidly. And the people who can really figure out how to embrace AI and experiment with it in a safe and appropriate way first, they're going to win the race, at least in the short term. 5 years down the road, it's going to level out a bit. But that's my gut. What do you think? That
I
it
think
really is
there's
a
a
great
number of
question.
key things here that still, that real differentiator is it's enabling us, and it's enabling us to be more human and deliver what we can still do as humans and
Yeah.
AI can't. So I think that there's a couple of things. I mean, there's those human interaction around potentially more difficult conversations, escalations,
Hmm.
renewals, resets. AI is not there yet. I think how that level of customer insight, not just the data, but the context, the interpretation,
Right.
and again, based on this interpretation, what do we need to do? You can get some level of efficiency gains using AI, but I think there's still a
Hmm.
massive value we can bring it. And I think as we talked about before, the how our team using AI, if we start
Yeah.
using it to be more strategic, and rather than just automate things, but more strategic consistently, So we operationalize it, have a company that brings it in. This is what we do. It's adopted.
Right.
There's a cultural adoption for the company. Yes, we are AI enabled. This is how we work. And I think having that
Hmm.
AI thinking will start to AI
Yeah.
thinking that still enables the human beings. I think that will absolutely differentiate people from it. It's a really interesting
Yeah.
thing to watch.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about the cultural adoption as well too, because like we talked about in the episode, adoption as a growth engine. What really distinguishes organizations is not the technology itself, because as we were talking about there, like any given vendor, some folks are really successful with it, some folks are not, and the difference are the people in the organization in which they operate, and so that cultural aspect, in cultural signaling people on how to behave in this organization, and these are the things that we value in our employees. We like people. Do we like people who are risk takers? Do we like people who are really direct and aggressive versus people who are a little more reserved, a little more polite? Does what work in the US work in an Asian culture and company, or others where they may have more of a differential to the senior folks in the organization? It all plays out differently. So I think, when you start to look through that lens, it's both similar to other technology in that, it's just a tool and it's an enabler, but it really is the people aspect. But I think it is going to do so much faster that it really is going to be, you've got to make sure you're hiring the right people and creating the right culture where everyone fits together. And I think one of the biggest things I've seen organizations make mistake is they don't get rid of the people that are not the right fit for the culture or for the organization, and they let them stick around and become toxic. And you need to make those decisions faster, because I think it's going to be so important, and in the speed with which AI moves forward, but the speed in which AI expects you to move forward, people need to be able to keep up and get ahead of where the tools are, and that's very, very hard to do, especially if you're always busy with infighting and nonsense.
Well, what do we do then if we're seeing these organizations, founders kind of
Hmm.
moving towards this? They're trying to use AI to help automate things,
Yeah.
bring it in and start using it more. What kind of things do they need to look at to get right before they really go about pushing AI?
Such a good question. I think one of them is there's going to be a little bit of a come to Jesus meeting if you start moving too fast with AI and you haven't gotten your shit together in house. So there are so many organizations where their data is crap. It's absolutely abysmal. It's all over. It's outdated. It's not accurate. People don't update it, don't do it. And if your data is going to be the foundation by which AI is going to be judging or recommending or taking action or automating or whatever it's going to be, more than ever, garbage in, garbage out. So it's not a new problem. The problem is it will affect your organization more than it ever has before. And gone are the days where you can just let that slide and focus on shiny things. And so I think that's got to be an absolute starting point. Is AI will really make you feel the gaps very quickly. And if you haven't cleaned up, gotten your house in order, you're going to be in big trouble very quickly. But what else would you say? What do you think?
I think, I mean, for
More
me,
things.
one of the big things, I mean, that absolutely is fundamental. I think the other thing is we're not yet, and I use the word yet a lot in AI conversations because we don't know where this is going
Yep.
in 5, 10 years. But I think we've got to decide what interactions, what engagements we want to bring AI into. Do we want to bring them
Hmm.
in? All of them? Maybe not. But which ones have to stay human? Do we
Right.
look on strategic guidance, as we said earlier on, those more challenging calls with customers, escalations, renewals, things like executive alignment? So I think businesses and
Yep.
founders need to make a decision as to which ones does it make sense to bring AI in and when, but which ones also do we need to just keep with us, keep with the humans. But I think
Hmm.
the
Yep.
big one absolutely is the data side of it. What do
Yep.
you think? I mean, what's one part of a traditional? Sorry, the word traditional, I use it quite loosely, but what's one part of a traditional customer journey where AI can add big value very quickly without damaging the relationship? What do you think about that?
God, I think there's so many areas that have potential, but we haven't really tapped into. One of the books I read, this guy Marcus Sheridan, and he wrote "They Ask You Answer," and all about how to educate your customers early on about everything. So by the time they actually contact you, they've gone through 80% of the selling cycle on their own. And and he advocates for telling their price and telling this, telling that. And he's like, any question you've ever gotten, if someone asks that question, you need to make that answer readily available. And he prefers doing it on video, making it in a very clean, easy way. I think AI has a lot of potential to answer a lot of upfront questions during the early awareness stage. Like, here's how we do, here's how we make your business better, here's what we make your life better, whatever it's going to be. Let me create a vision for you. But I don't think it's there yet. And you've got to be aware of the hallucinations. And that comes back to the data that's trained on. But, like when I'm talking with ChatGPT and we're having a great conversation, she does make me think about things that I haven't thought about before. I think there's a lot of potential for that in the upfront sales cycle to really get people interested and excited. Like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, that could really work for me. And doing all that before you make that human connection. But then I think it's really important that when you transfer that relationship, which is front loaded by your digital employee into your human employee, you need to make sure that that person who's going to pick it up initially understands what the expectations that have already been set and is ready to really advance this relationship, because the AI set an expectation. Now someone needs to advance and really bring it home. But that's just one thought that comes to my mind. What do you think?
I think it's, and again, we've done other episodes with guests as well, where there are. I think one of the things that people are looking at is how do you summarize key moments in the customer journey.
Yeah.
So you can really, whether it's meetings, insight from meetings, minutes, you can start looking at kind of adoption, stages of adoption, maturity, usage patterns, even things like risk, if we're looking at kind of contract risk. And that, I think if we provide a summary on key moments like this, it enables us as humans to then respond faster. I think what we can also do, and this I think is quite exciting, is we can really help accelerate experimentation. So we can do A/B testing, test messaging, test playbooks, test all of these things that perhaps before would have taken a lot longer to do. So it'll allow us to try new things and experiment with the right results a lot quicker than we did before. And I think that's the really key thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a... Go on, sorry.
As I was listening to you, though, one of the things that popped into my head is, AI is such a powerful engine and thought engine and this and that. It's also an anti-excuse engine. Gone are the days now where you have any excuse for not having your act together. Like, you could have prepped in AI for 5 minutes and been so much more farther ahead. It may not have been 100% correct, but you could have at least been aware of what you needed to know. Here's that. Tell me the basics that I can come into a meeting and wing it if I need to, for whatever reason I'm running late. So gone are the days when the dog ate my homework. And I think that's really important. But before we wind out, because I know we're almost at time here, I wanted to ask you, where do you see AI as genuinely dangerous for founders to rely too heavily on it? Where do people still need to be very careful?
I think you talked about this earlier on, and I think there is right now is putting too much trust in it. The fact that the examples we talked through, we trust it on areas that we're not experts in, is a little worrying. People can start asking AI today about legal advice. Well, how accurate is it? So you've just got to be wary of that. And I think there's a risk that people aren't trained properly in how to use it. So some of the insights and the way they could be using it might be inconsistent and not correct. I think things that we've got to avoid are things like any interactions involving emotion, human emotion. That AI can't do that. Politics, any form of politics, whether it be government,
so much bias,
opinions about cultural differences, and even I think something like change management is a very interesting one, because we've talked about this before on the episode about adoption. It's about changing human behavior. Can AI help us there? I don't know. So I think that's a big one. I think also relationship resets after product issues or trust breaks. I think if we rely on AI to do that for us, it devalues massively that relationship you've got with the customer. I think another thing is perhaps kind of long-term visionary conversations. If a customer wants to know where we're going, right now AI is not going to tell us that. And the answer to where you're going isn't AI. But I think you still need the human there. We need the founder. What's the founder's vision? What's their passion? Why are they doing this? So I think that's the really key one. Any that you'd add?
I like where you're going. As I was listening, the thought that popped into my mind that where we are right now, AI kind of reminds me of like a drunken college student. The next morning, there's going to be some hallucinations, some bias, and some blind spots. You're just not quite sure where it all came out factually. And I think there is still that, like, let's make sure we're being careful right now to not take everything at face value. Like you were saying, like politics, medical issues, I think is another one where there might be blind spots or bias or misinterpretations. Emotional health and mental health, I think that's also a potential problem area. So I think there are areas that it's got great potential right now, but I don't think it's there, and to be very careful. And I'm sure as a founder or a leader of your organization, say, what are the risks if we get this decision wrong because we relied too heavily on AI?
Yeah.
And making sure that you have those safety checks in there. Because I think there's still the temptation is, like I said when I was an AI hypocrite, when I don't know about it, yeah, this sounds good enough, I'll buy it on the surface, but I'm not really digging deeper to validate that this is the right thing. And I think there's going to be some real potential there. But Jason, why don't you close us out with our breakthrough challenge?
Absolutely. Great conversation. And I think we'll find that there's many more of these. We've got some more guests coming up that we're super excited about. So the breakthrough challenge this week for our listeners, this week, do one thing that most SaaS companies won't. Pick one key part of your customer journey and redesign it so that AI handles the work and that your team handles more of the meaning. Ask yourself things like, where are we wasting human time on tasks that don't create value? Where are we missing moments that only a human can deliver? So think about automating the noise and humanizing the impact. I think that's a really big one. Excellent. But this has been a great conversation, Jason. Really enjoyed it. And I think there's many more of these ones to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Breakthrough SaaS Growth with the Jasons. If you found today's episode useful, make sure you subscribe, check out our website at breakthroughsaasgrowth.com, and follow us on all the usual social media channels for more insights and updates. And don't forget to share the show with your colleagues who are driving growth in SaaS. See you next time.